The train was about to depart, but my fiancé James blocked our way with unwavering determination. He insisted on waiting for Emily, the girl who'd gone to the river to wash her face, acting as if she were some kind of princess. This was the last train heading to the state-run textile factory. If we missed it, we'd be stuck in the countryside for good. Just as the train was pulling out, I clenched my teeth and called for the others to help drag James onto it. That's how we managed to board. We became proud workers at the textile factory. But Emily missed the recruitment and had to stay behind in the village, where she was forced to marry an old widower. Within 3 years, she had 2 children, and during her last childbirth, she died from complications. Even after death, she was given a ghost marriage. James's expression was blank, unreadable. But on our wedding night, he wrapped a hemp rope around my neck. His eyes were bloodshot as he growled, "It was your cold, poisonous heart that kept Emily from getting the chance to work in the city. She suffered so much in her life. Why do you get to live so well?" When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the moment just before the train was about to leave. I saw James turning to glance toward the river, waiting. This time, I let go of his hand. Let him face the consequences of his own actions. "What's the rush?" he sneered. "You in such a hurry to reincarnate? I've got all the referral letters right here. If you think you're so capable, go on, get on the train." James's voice was hoarse with emotion, his face twisted with grief. But without those letters, we couldn't even board the train. Hearing the argument, I stood there in a daze, the despair and terror of death still clinging to me. Under the blazing sun, a few of the young men traveling with us were shouting at James. Someone tried to grab the referral letters, but James's face distorted with rage as he held up a match. "Push me one more time, and I'll burn them all. Nobody's going anywhere." At his words, everyone's face went pale with fear. Being able to enter the city and get a factory job was like a miracle from heaven. "James, are you out of your mind? If you want to wait for Emily, then do it alone. Why drag the rest of us down?" "Yeah, give us back our letters." Even with everyone shouting at him, James stood firm, his eyes dark and hostile. When someone tried to get closer, he struck the match. One more step, and we all go to hell together. Everyone froze, stunned. No one dared to make another move. "You're all so selfish," James hissed. "We're from the same village. Some of us even related by blood, and you're just going to abandon Emily like this? Her referral letter is with me too. If we leave now, what happens to her?" James was the village chief's son, and he carried some weight back home. Before we left, the chief had entrusted all our letters to him, and he promised he'd take care of them. We agreed, thinking it was safer that way. Now, everyone regretted that decision bitterly. Someone tugged at my arm, saying, "Sarah, please talk to your fiancé. If this drags on any longer, we'll miss the train." I lowered my gaze. Since when has James ever listened to me? The only person he ever cared about always and only was Emily. My father was a martyr. The day I was born, the news of his death arrived, and the shock sent my mother into fatal hemorrhaging. I was raised by my grandfather, but after he passed, I was taken in by the village chief's family. To outsiders, it looked like an act of kindness. They saw the chief's family as honorable for taking in an orphan like me. But it wasn't until I had died once that I saw things clearly. The truth was, they took me in to secure the inheritance of a family line with no heirs. It wasn't just about my house and land, they also wanted the martyr's pension that came with my father's name. James's cold eyes swept over me. "What now, Sarah? You gonna try and stop me too?" "No," I said. "You're right. We really shouldn't leave Emily behind." I fought hard to keep the bitterness out of my voice, but my words instantly angered the others. "Sarah, can you be rational for once?" someone snapped. "Just because he's your fiancé doesn't mean you should blindly take his side." "Yeah. If we lose this chance to work in the city, who's going to take responsibility? You?" Their scolding only made James more scornful. He shot them a cold glance and barked, "What are you yelling about? The only reason any of you even got a chance to go work at the factory is because my dad fought for it. One more word, and none of you are going." He waved the referral letters in his hand, both proud and provocative. Then he glanced over at me since I'd stayed quiet the whole time. Sarah's way more obedient than the rest of you. Learn from her. I let out a cold laugh, but didn't say anything back. James was always good at making himself look important, but let's be real, those extra factory spots didn't come from his family's connections. Everyone here either came from a martyr's family or had parents who'd made major contributions to society and were struggling to get by. The only ones who got in through my dad's connections were James and Emily. James was the fiancé of a martyr's daughter, Miso. Of course, the organization reserved a spot for him. As for Emily, she went around telling people she was my dad's goddaughter and even got the village chief to back her up. I didn't call her out in my past life. But this time, I won't stay silent. The sun was scorching, baking the ground beneath our feet. Everything around us was hot to the touch. The sharp whistle of the train engine up ahead sounded like a death sentence. One of the guys from our village, Michael, finally cracked. His dad was an old coal miner who died in a mine collapse during a rainstorm. That sacrifice was the only reason Mike got his spot at the factory. James, damn it. Give me my letter. Mike lunged at him, but James took a step back. Gritting his teeth, he suddenly struck the match. With a sharp flick, a flame danced dangerously close to the brown paper envelope. Everyone stared in shock as the edges of the envelope began to blacken. That's when Emily came running up, pants legs rolled, her pale face flushed red. She walked right past us, and even took a moment to pull out her little mirror to check her reflection. Facing the angry stares and accusations, she smiled sweetly and said, "What's the rush? The train doesn't have wings. It's not going to fly away." By now, James had already tucked the match back in his pocket. Like he was revealing treasure, he smugly handed over the envelope. "All right, we can go to the city together now." Mike's jaw clenched so tight you could hear his teeth grind. His fists were balled, so tightly they creaked. When Emily took the envelope from James, she deliberately let her fingers brush against his hand and even winked at him. How had I not seen it before? Those two had been sneaking around behind my back all along, and I actually believed their whole brother and sister nonsense. The train's whistle shrieked again. Mike snatched the envelope containing the referral letters and shouted at us, "What the hell are you all standing around for? Get on the damn train." Everyone broke into a run, desperate not to miss it. I followed behind in a half-jog. As Emily passed me, hand in hand with James, she finally seemed to notice me. "Sarah," she said, "why are you running so slow? Are you still mad at James? Are you holding us back on purpose?" "What would I be mad about?" I replied evenly. But luck wasn't on our side. Just as I finished speaking, the train doors slammed shut. It began to pick up speed, pulling away from the platform faster and faster. "What?" The noise around us suddenly became unbearably quiet. My voice, calm and flat like dead water, broke the silence. "I haven't visited my grandpa's grave yet. Maybe it's not so bad missing this train after all." The train moved farther and farther away, and soon even the sound of the wheels on the tracks faded into silence. A few of the girls began sobbing, their hands covering their mouths to stifle the sound. Mike and the others looked furious, their expressions dark as storm clouds. Someone grabbed James by the collar and screamed, "You son of are you happy now? This is all because of Emily. She just had to wash her damn face." "What? Her skin would have fallen off if she skipped it for once." Emily's face turned ghostly pale. She trembled and tried to hide behind James. I didn't mean to," she stammered. James turned and glared at me, hatred blazing in his eyes. "Sarah, stop being so damn passive-aggressive. No one wanted this to happen." "Passive-aggressive." I smiled, my voice echoing across the empty platform, strangely cold. "You think I'm the one being passive-aggressive?" Mike even turned his anger on me. "Sarah, your fiancé pulled this crap and you don't think you're responsible?" "Yeah," another person chimed in. "We trusted you. That's the only reason we let James hold on to our referral letters." The rage burning through the group needed somewhere to go, and I understood that. I nodded. I wasn't going to fight them. Not now. Not like this. Meanwhile, a few of the guys had already landed punches on James. To his credit, he held his ground, not making a single sound. It wasn't until a few girls pushed Emily that James finally lost it. He pulled a pair of scissors out of his pocket and snarled, Touch her again, and I swear I'll ruin all three of you." Seeing how unhinged he looked, everyone finally backed off. Emily clung to him, sobbing miserably in his arms. James comforted her while snapping coldly at the rest of us. "What's the rush? Even if we miss the train, I got other ways to get you all into the city." Everyone stared at him, eyes filled with shock and disbelief. James smirked. "A few days from now, a military unit will be passing through here. We've got referral letters. The army won't turn us away." That was the moment I became completely certain James had been reborn too. In my previous life, there had indeed been a military unit that passed through. Emily had tried to follow them into the city, but she didn't have the necessary documents. Someone asked quietly, "How do you know my dad's the village chief?" James tilted his head arrogantly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Is it weird that I know a few things? Besides, the commander of the Southern Military District is an old friend of my father's. As long as I give his name, they won't refuse us." Hope flickered in everyone's hearts. Some even started cozying up to James. Only Mike remained stiff-necked, his voice full of resentment. "What are you so proud of? If you hadn't messed things up, we wouldn't need to beg the army." James gave him a cold glare. Emily pouted and spoke in a sugary tone, though there was an unmistakable threat beneath it. "Mike, are you saying you don't want to go to the city?" Mike choked on his words, his face flushing red with anger. I smiled cheerfully. "The military's got their own mission. They might not let us tag along." Emily visibly flinched, grabbing James's hand instinctively. He glared at me like he wanted to tear me apart. "Stop talking nonsense. No one needs your sarcasm." "Then let's wait and see," I said, my smile deepening as I turned and walked back toward the village. The sun stretched my shadow long and thin behind me. In my past life, I had clung to James, trying to escape the countryside. I never realized that he had been using me from the very beginning. But in this life, I'll make sure they both experience what it means to be truly miserable. When I got back to the village, I happened to catch the village chief in his courtyard cursing loudly. When he saw me return, his face twisted. "Sarah, what are you doing back?" "We missed the train," I replied flatly. His expression changed instantly. He dropped his hoe and took off running toward the train station. I watched his figure disappear into the distance and let out a cold laugh. James and Emily wanted to make it into the city? Not in this life. The first thing I did after getting home was send a letter to the authorities requesting the cancellation of my engagement to James. In that letter, I laid everything out in detail: why I was calling off the wedding, James and Emily's inappropriate relationship, and the truth that Emily was never my father's goddaughter, despite what they claimed. 2 days later, just one day before the military was scheduled to arrive, I got a reply. The letter clearly stated they would investigate the matter thoroughly and, if confirmed, James and Emily's entry permits would be revoked. I smiled with satisfaction and burned the letter. In the flickering light of the flame, my face reflected nothing but grim delight. We returned to the train station as planned. The scorching sun glinted off the tracks, so bright it hurt the eyes. Everyone paced anxiously on the platform. Emily stood beside James, throwing me a smug look. "Sarah, why are you ignoring me?" "Still mad at James?" she asked sweetly. "You better watch yourself. If you keep this up, James might not take you into the city."
I said her coldly.
She had the nerve to say that after using my father's name to secure a spot, and now she was threatening me with it. James gave me a frosty look. "You'd better stop playing games. If you keep this up, you can leave right now." I smirked. So arrogant. I was just curious how they'd react once they found out their permits had been revoked. "Why should I leave?" I said. "I have my entry permit." James's eyes turned even colder. Emily tilted her head, playing with a strand of hair as she looked me up and down. "Sarah, don't upset James again, okay?" she said softly. "We women should stay soft and gentle," Emily said sweetly. "After all, men are the head of the family." She deliberately leaned closer to James, playing the perfect picture of a meek and obedient little flower. I couldn't help but snap back. Even Chairman Mao said that women hold up half the sky. What are you saying? You don't agree with a great leader's ideals? Emily's face went instantly pale. That was a dangerous accusation, and she knew it.
She wouldn't dare take that on.
The tension thickened. Everyone from the village was now watching like it was a show. James glared at me, then gently raised his hand to wipe the sweat from Emily's forehead. The intimacy of the gesture made several people turn away, awkwardly. In this era, even married couples didn't display affection so openly in public. James locked eyes with me, his gaze full of warning. If you dare bully Emily again, I swear once I meet the general, I'll report your factory quota and have it taken away. I laughed aloud. Wow, James. You've repeated that lie so many times, you actually believe. The crowd immediately lit up, waving and shouting excitedly. Emily wasn't weak and fragile anymore either. She straightened up and ran faster than anyone. James hurried right behind her. I stood at the edge of the group, watching as James and Emily shoved past Mike and the others to get to a military officer. "Comrade, we missed the train," James said as he pulled out a referral letter. "My father and your general go way back. These are all children of martyrs. We're hoping you'll help us get to the city." He deliberately emphasized the words "children of martyrs," then cast a threatening glance in my direction, clearly afraid I'd expose him. Before the officer could respond, Emily's eyes filled with tears. "My father was John Leong. He died on the battlefield. We all have referral letters. Please, for the sake of my father's sacrifice, let us come with you." Her voice trembled with grief, her sorrow so sincere-looking it could fool anyone who didn't know better. The others from our village all turned to look at me. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, Emily was my father's goddaughter. Even though many of them privately disapproved of her clinginess and fakery, none of them stepped forward to call her out.
Not now.
"John Leong was your father?" the officer asked, eyes suddenly alert. Emily lowered her gaze, tears clinging to her lashes. Yet in her eyes, I caught the faint glimmer of calculation. James stood behind her with his chin raised high, already acting like victory was his. "Yes," Emily choked out. "He was my father. I grew up hearing stories about him. I've dreamed of going to the city to visit where he's buried. No, he didn't return home. He and his fallen comrades lie forever in the martyrs' cemetery." Gasps broke out around us. A few of the soldiers even wiped tears from their eyes. Clearly, they were moved by what they saw as her deep filial devotion. The officer's expression turned solemn and respectful. He saluted her, and that's when I finally spoke. "Emily, are you really John Leong's daughter?" Her face turned ghost white. She clutched her referral letter tighter. James immediately jumped in front of her, eyes blazing. "Sarah, stop making a scene. What? Are you jealous now?" The lead officer gave Emily a confused look. Emily shot me a furious glare before finally muttering, "I'm not his biological daughter. I'm his goddaughter." James took the chance to pull out a forged letter from the village chief. "Comrade, here's a signed statement from our village leader. You can read it yourself." A few of the villagers chimed in to support them. Yes, we all knew Emily got her referral because she's a martyr's goddaughter. That's right. Please let us board. Emily has always been close to Mr. Leong's family. We all know that. But the truth was, Emily had never been close to my family. What she was close to was James. I wasn't surprised by the villagers' response. They didn't like Emily either, but they were all afraid that if she got into trouble, it would ruin their own chances of getting into the city. The officer frowned, then took my documents and examined them carefully. His expression shifted. Then he turned to me with a serious look and said, "Comrade, please board the truck." James opened his mouth to snap at me again. He wasn't done, but the officer stopped him. "I've never heard of John Leong having a goddaughter." James and Emily's faces turned ugly. They exchanged a panicked look, unable to get a single coherent word out. The officer continued, "You'd better not be lying. If you are, you're looking at prison." I stood quietly among the crowd, smiling at James and Emily. The other villagers just looked at one another, not daring to say anything. To be honest, most of them had always doubted Emily's claim of being my father's goddaughter. Everyone in the nearby villages was at least distantly related, and no one had ever heard of Emily being connected to my family. There had been plenty of whispers behind closed doors for a while now. At that moment, I spoke again. "It's true. That statement was written by the village chief." Everyone turned to me in surprise. No one expected me to speak on their behalf. Even James and Emily's eyes lit up with hope. I smiled. But I never said Emily is my dad's goddaughter. I only said the village chief wrote the letter. The officer, hearing that even I wouldn't confirm Emily's identity, didn't hesitate further. Still, he let James and Emily board the truck. The vehicle started to pull away slowly. Sitting inside, the two of them looked relieved, like they'd just dodged death. I watched them, my face calm, though a storm was raging in my heart. Just moments ago, I'd considered exposing them right then and there. But no, letting them off that easily would be a waste. If anything, they might still find another way into the city later. So why not let them on, bring them all the way, and personally crush their dreams? When we arrived in the city, everyone looked around with wide eyes, amazed and curious. Emily clung to James's hand, giddy with excitement. James, this place is amazing. I want— James cut her off. He'd forgotten for a second that he wasn't the well-off city worker he'd been in our last life. He had just come from the countryside. He didn't have a cent to his name. Just then, James glanced at me. You should pay for her. Why? I looked at him, completely unimpressed. Because if it weren't for me, you and Emily wouldn't have made it on the truck, he snapped. I raised my brows, about to respond with a cutting remark, but Mike pulled me aside. All right. We've got to get to the factory and check in. Don't waste time. The other villagers jumped in to calm things down too. James clenched his teeth and held his tongue. It was getting late. He didn't dare cause more trouble. Sensing the shift, Emily quickly tried to ease the tension. It's okay, James.
I'm fine.
Her sweet tone only made James's heart ache more for her. He gave me a hard tug. Watch yourself, he hissed, then stormed off with Emily in tow. As they passed me, Emily cast me a smug sideways glance. Serves you right. At the textile factory, Emily rushed to hand in her referral letter before I could. She even leaned close to whisper in my ear. Your dead father turned out to be quite useful. Be sure to thank him for me. I clenched my teeth. You sure about that? Hope you don't regret it. Regret what? She said, then flashed her new watch in my face. See this? James bought it for me. She looked over at James, who was speaking with the factory official, and her smile widened. You ever wonder where your yearly compensation payments went? They're with me. James is just scared I won't have money to eat meat. He says I'm delicate and need to be pampered. You're the type who should eat husks and bark. Rage boiled inside me. Emily always wore new clothes and glowed with health, while the other girls in the village were pale and thin. I thought her parents spoiled her. Now I knew the truth, she'd been living well off my father's death benefits. That realization only deepened my hatred for James. The official was still examining everyone's documents carefully, and no one noticed how his frown was deepening. Seeing my tense expression, Emily burst into laughter, doubled over with joy. James kept glancing at me from the corner of his eye, a warning in his stare. Don't make trouble. At the same time, a crowd of reporters had gathered outside the factory gates. Emily and James elbowed their way to the front. Emily tossed her shiny black hair and forced a dignified smile at the cameras. Hello, everyone. I'm the daughter of John Leong, the war martyr. The crowd gasped. John Leong, the one who killed more than a dozen Japanese soldiers in battle. The hero who rushed toward a Japanese tank carrying explosives in his arms. Incredible. You're the daughter of that hero? Amid the crowd's admiring gasps, Emily forced out a tear. Since I was a child, I dreamed of coming to the city to see where my father lived and to follow in his footsteps, contributing to the great cause of building our country. James stood beside her, chest puffed out. That's right. My father's the village chief. He worked tirelessly to help Emily get a place in the factory. When we missed the train, it was because of me and my father reaching out to the army that these children of martyrs could still chase their dreams of building the nation. As he spoke, he shot me a warning glance as if to say, if you dare say a word, you'll regret it. The other villagers looked uncomfortable, red-faced, but none of them stepped forward to expose the lie. No one wanted to offend the village chief, not when their own families were still back in the countryside. Mike clenched his fists, shaking with fury. He started to lunge forward, but someone beside him pulled him back. Have you forgotten your mom's still in the village? The guy whispered, helpless and aggrieved. Mike stopped cold like a bucket of ice water had been poured over his head. James looked at him with smug satisfaction and let out a cold snort. Just then, a reporter pushed a microphone in front of me. Hello, are you also a child of a martyr? I smiled faintly and looked at Emily. She quickly stepped in front of me and pinched my arm hard in a spot no one could see. She wanted all the attention for herself, basking in admiration as the so-called daughter of a martyr. Being a goddaughter wasn't enough, she wanted the real title. James leaned in behind her and whispered in my ear, his voice low and threatening. Don't make trouble.
I'll marry you.
Once we're settled at the factory, we'll file a marriage application. The reporters were visibly confused by the strange exchange. Emily quickly put on a fake smile.
Sorry about that.
My cousin here is just really shy around strangers. Losing interest, the reporters turned away and ignored me. I quietly stepped back into the crowd, watching them with cold amusement. Keep going, I thought. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. Seeing that I stayed quiet, Emily lifted her chin arrogantly and went on spinning her tail into the cameras, painting herself as a brave and determined daughter of a war hero who had grown up in hardship and never backed down. That's when the factory's supervisor suddenly stormed out of the building, his face dark with fury. Several stern-faced staff members followed behind him. My heart thrilled. Here we go. Time for the show to begin. His gaze locked on Emily and James. You two, come with me to the office. Emily's smile nearly fell apart. She nervously grabbed James's hand. He looked shaken, too. James glanced at me, and I gave him a calm, pleasant smile. That look gave him a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach, but he tried to play it cool. Sir, is there some kind of misunderstanding? Did someone say something untrue about us? All our documents are legitimate. The supervisor slammed the referral letters down on the ground. You had the audacity to forge documents and pose as children of a martyr? Emily and James's faces went ghost white. The crowd exploded in shock. Reporters started snapping photos wildly. No, it's not like that. Emily stammered, shaking her head. Too, I'm a child of a martyr. I mean, I'm his goddaughter. She was trying to use that false title to slip by once again. James was sweating through his shirt, but still tried to defend them. Sir, this is slander. The supervisor cut him off. The military district has completed their investigation. You and Emily colluded in a fake relationship, abused your connections, and forged your way into the factory. Absolutely disgraceful. At the words military district, Emily's legs gave out. She collapsed to the ground and trembled. Didn't mean to. I just wanted to get into the city. James panicked. He whipped his head toward me and shouted, Sarah, you did this. You set us up. I hid behind a reporter, pretending to be frightened. I just couldn't stand by and watch someone suddenly claim to be my father's daughter. Another wave of shock rippled through the crowd. So, you're John Leong's real daughter? Reporters shouted, cameras flashing. Oh my God, who are these people? These two shameless cheaters should be thrown in jail. At that moment, several police officers entered the scene. You're under investigation for forging official documents, dishonoring a war hero's legacy, and other serious offenses. You'll need to come with us. Emily finally cracked and burst into loud sobs. No, it wasn't Mike, it was James. He didn't know. James's eyes widened in disbelief as Emily threw all the blame onto him. Emily, are you insane? She clenched her teeth, avoiding his gaze. It was James. He forced me. He said he liked me and made me come to the city with him. Her words didn't just shock James, they stunned me and our fellow villagers as well. Mike spat on the ground. What a filthy liar. James completely broke down. The woman he had loved for 2 lifetimes had just betrayed him in front of everyone. He tried to lunge at her, but the police held him back tightly. Emily, say that again if you dare. She flinched, shrinking away. It was you. You forced me. The two of them, who had been all lovey-dovey just moments ago, now looked like they wanted to strangle each other. You piece of trash, I'll kill you. James roared, straining against the officers. Honestly, if the police hadn't been holding him, I wouldn't have doubted that he really would have done it. As the officers dragged him away, James kept yelling, "You can't arrest me." That liar's letter was fake, but mine was real. I'm a martyr's family member. I'm Sarah's fiancé, James shouted, as if clinging to his last thread of hope. I smiled and shook my head. James, what makes you think I'd ever still want to marry you? You love me, don't you? He cried, stumbling toward me like a drowning man reaching for anything to keep from sinking. I pushed him away. That was before I died once already. Why would I still love you? Our engagement is canceled. The moment I said that, James's pupils dilated in shock. The others didn't understand what I meant by died once, but James did.
So did I.
He shook his head violently.
No.
No, that's not true. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean for it to happen. He was falling apart, completely unhinged.
He knew this was the end.
Reporters swarmed in with microphones and cameras. Why did you pretend to be a martyr's child? Is it true you two were having an affair? Why would you shame a national hero like this? Emily was dragged into the police car, still screaming, "Don't arrest me. I don't want to go to jail." James looked completely blank, his eyes hollow as they shoved him into the squad car. Sirens wailed as they were taken away. The crowd around us broke into applause. A few villagers came over and patted me on the shoulder. But I knew this was only the beginning of their reckoning. It wasn't over yet. Once the storm passed, I and a few of the villagers successfully started our jobs at the textile factory. By day, I worked on the floor. By night, under the yellow glow of a dim lamp, I compiled materials for a formal report. For years, James's family had taken my father's death benefits, my land, and my home. To say they raised me was a joke. I had funded their entire household with money meant for me. Even the village chief's family had lived in my house while renting out their own for income. I documented it all, every abuse of power, every property they stole, every injustice. I even included the chief's long history of corruption. 3 months later, the workshop director suddenly called me into his office. When I walked in, I saw an elderly man in uniform sitting at the desk. I recognized him instantly from an old photo in my grandfather's collection. In my past life, this man had once done great favors for both me and James. Grandpa George, my grandfather's childhood friend and my father's mentor. In my previous life, because of me, he had shown James a lot of kindness, helping him rise quickly through the ranks. And the person I had sent my report to a few months ago was Grandpa George. He looked up at me with kind eyes. "Child, I've read everything you wrote," he said, his voice heavy with guilt and sorrow. "You've suffered a lot." My nose tingled with emotion, but I shook my head. "Grandpa George, I just want justice." He nodded firmly, his eyes welling with tears. "You've done well. I was blind all these years, trusted the wrong people. I thought James's family would treat you right. Don't worry. I'll get to the bottom of this and make things right." Thanks to Grandpa George's decisive action, the investigation moved quickly. The truth came out. James's family had stolen a martyr's death compensation, illegally seized my land and home, and shamelessly profited off a dead man's legacy. It was all exposed. The village chief was stripped of his position and sentenced to prison. With Grandpa George's help, my home, my land, and my father's compensation were returned to me. For the first time, the weight in my heart lifted. Decades passed. 90 years later, I had become a well-known industrialist. I was invited back to my village to share my story with the younger generation, to inspire them. The new village chief was a humble, down-to-earth man, and the villagers welcomed me warmly. I spent the day visiting the village. The once dilapidated mud homes had been replaced by neat little townhouses. There was even a large public square where children ran and played, laughing. After the event, the new chief quietly pulled me aside. He seemed hesitant, like he didn't want to ruin the moment, but finally said, "There's something I feel you should know before leaving." I raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "After James and Emily got out of prison, they ended up together," he said carefully. I tilted my head slightly.
Them, huh?
I could hardly even remember their faces. "Are they doing okay?" I asked lightly, as if inquiring about two old acquaintances. The chief sighed. "James, he's completely ruined. That bastard stumbles around drunk all day and beats his wife. Whenever he gets drunk, he starts yelling about how he was once a big shot at the factory, claims even the general had high hopes for him. It's pathetic. He shook his head. Emily, well, she's bitter all the time. Screams at James constantly. Half a year ago, they got into a fight and she had a miscarriage. The chief shrugged, his face caught somewhere between pity and resignation. I nodded silently. I no longer had anything to say. Once, I had hated them with every fiber of my being. But now, they couldn't stir the slightest ripple in my heart. Early the next morning, I wandered through the village alone. As I walked toward the western edge of town, I saw two familiar figures, familiar yet distant. It was James and Emily. James looked worn down by life, his back hunched, streaks of white in his hair, his clothes yellowed and threadbare. He was a far cry from the ambitious man he had once been. Emily stood in front of him, hands on her hips, hurling insults. Her clothes were rumpled and dirty, her whole appearance disheveled and bitter. Her voice was sharp and shrill. "Oh, what? Regretting things now," she sneered. "I heard Sarah came back and now you're acting weird. Well, it's too late. She wouldn't look twice at you now."
Get lost.
James shoved her away. There was a flash of rage in his eyes, but it quickly faded into helplessness and numb acceptance. "I know I'm not worthy of her," he muttered. "A failure like me deserves to be stuck with someone like you." "You loser," Emily snapped. "No wonder she dumped you." They kept throwing jabs, spitting venom at each other. Neither of them noticed me standing nearby, watching in silence. I don't know how long I stood there until James suddenly looked up. Our eyes met and he froze. Emily followed his gaze, and the color drained from her face. She stumbled backward. "Sarah." James murmured my name. I didn't answer. I turned to leave, but Emily gritted her teeth and ran after me, her eyes burning with resentment and humiliation. "Are you happy now? You ruined my whole life. All of it was because of you." "No," I said, turning back calmly. "You destroyed yourself with your greed and selfishness." Emily opened her mouth to say more, but James yanked her back roughly and shoved her behind him. He muttered a few harsh warnings to her, then turned to me, his face full of regret. "Sarah," he said, "I know I was wrong.
These past few years have been hell for me.
I regret everything so much.
Ive divorced Emily.
Let's start over. I promise I'll treat you right this time." Before I could even react, Emily slapped James hard across the face. James struck back without hesitation. His hand landed squarely on her cheek, sending her crashing to the ground. A rush of dark, glaring blood pooled beneath her. She had miscarried. My eyes widened. I turned to run for help. Behind me, James acted like nothing had happened. He even kicked Emily as she lay curled up on the ground, cursing as he did. "So, what if the bastard's gone?" he spat. "Why the hell are you crying? You think I didn't know? Every time we were out of rice, you crawled into that old man's bed at the edge of the village. That kid was never mine." Behind me, Emily's shrill cries mixed with James's foul curses. Their voices echoed across the empty west end of the village, sharp and jarring, like broken glass in the wind. Once the village chief and his men arrived, I quietly walked away. Later, I heard Emily had lost the child. And when the old widower at the edge of the village, the man she'd apparently been involved with, found out, he broke down sobbing and got into a brutal fight with James. They went at each other with real hatred. But James, weakened by years of drinking and refusing to work, couldn't even overpower the old man. In the end, he was beaten so badly that he lost the one thing that made him a man. Back home, I sat in the courtyard, staring blankly at the book in my hands. The hatred and pain I once carried had long since faded. Watching the misery James and Emily lived in now stirred no sympathy in me. They had made their own choices and created their own destruction. I had climbed out of that darkness with my own strength. And step by step ahead of me was a bright, open future. A gentle breeze swept past, as if my grandfather and the others were answering me from afar. I stood, tears sliding silently down my cheeks, my heart at peace at last.